Hey guys, Smitty here. Thanks for tuning in and welcome back. Today we are back in Valheim covering my most recent build of the Tree Village. So in this video, I'll be doing a tour of this build and giving my thoughts behind it. But if you want to see some of the build process, make sure you check out my previous video where I show some of the techniques behind this build. But without further ado, grab a snack, grab a drink, and let's get right into it. Okay, so the Tree Village. This has been a really special project for me. As a builder, every now and then you have a project where you just feel particularly inspired during the build process, and this was definitely one of those projects. I just love how this one came together, and I think it has such a strong theme. Many of you guys jokingly asked in the comments, where are the Ewoks? And you're actually totally spot on in terms of the inspiration of this being from the Forest Moon of Endor in Star Wars Return of the Jedi. I always loved the kind of primitive looking huts of the Ewoks, and how they just kind of decorated the canopies in that movie, and so I wanted to replicate something similar. That being said, you can see that I did my best to kind of maintain a very primitive vibe slash feeling throughout this build. I think what we'll do here is just start from the forest floor level, and then I'll take you up into the canopy with all the huts. But again, I want to do my best to keep a very primitive feeling to this village. Perhaps even tribal could be the word for it. So on the forest floor, I've utilized a lot of different decorative items such as tanning racks, animal heads, and meats, as you'll see further along, to kind of give it this feeling that the people here are kind of like a hunter-gatherer group, kind of continue on with that story. I had to be very intentional with the build pieces that I utilized throughout this one in order to be consistent with that, primitive tribal theme. So you see that the build mostly consists of core wood and thatch. You're not going to see a ton of stone or metal pieces. I even tried utilizing the normal wood floors and beams pretty sparingly. Maybe a couple things here and there, but just like when a painter chooses their color palette to paint with, builders should also do the same thing when choosing their components for a project. It just gives a much more cohesive and authentic feeling when you're consistent with your build components style and theme. So as you work your way forward, you can see that the centerpiece of this village is this awesome looking burial chamber that I've kind of decorated to give a little bit more flair, to just maybe feel like it's maybe like a spiritual or significant site for this village. I think the green torches really make the spot pop and catch your eye, which I like. And then the Yagaluth trophy just serves as a nice kind of foreboding accent piece on the entrance here. So then as we head to the back, there's just kind of like a rough altar looking area. I stuck a knife up here for, who knows what, but funnily enough, even though this place probably required the least amount of work from a decorative standpoint, it might actually be my favorite spot because it's probably the strongest storytelling element of the build. When I was initially building, it was just kind of by chance that the burial chamber ended up nearby, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it, but rather than get frustrated, it kind of served as an excellent opportunity to try to integrate a world asset into the build. And it just works really well. I love when builders integrate permanent game assets into the story or their build that they're working on, and I was really happy with it. As we just kind of continue on here, you'll see that I just have a couple other areas made to look like maybe animals are being skinned or like harvested after some hunts. Again, some more tanning racks. And then yes, some more areas over here where looks like maybe some meat is being prepared. So again, with that kind of hunter-gatherer theme. So moving on to the canopy, we can really see where the Endor slash Ewok inspiration comes through. Again, I wanted to ensure that I kept a kind of primitive theme, so I predominantly used a lot of core wood and thatch to give it that tribal thatch hut feel. And so I came up with a couple different designs that scattered throughout this project just to make sure it didn't feel too stale or repetitive. I also wanted to ensure that the build felt dynamic, so while also differentiating different designs of the huts, I also want to make sure that each kind of hut or node is at a different height and then connected with these core bridges or core wood bridges, which just turned out so awesome and organic looking. The thing is, I had been pondering this idea of building a village in the trees for a while, but I knew a flat bridge with wood floor pieces just wasn't really going to cut it for the look I wanted, and so yeah, it's just going to be a little too clean looking if I did that, and it would kind of break the immersion of the theme. So I started thinking about an alternative way to connect these huts. One way that would allow me some freedom to kind of create more parabolic shapes with other materials, and I found that if you could create a surface from which to kind of consistently custom place core wood logs to, I could then have the freedom to kind of create a bridge of whatever shape I wanted, so long as the stability permitted it. It's a pretty slow process, so like a lot of times what I would do is I would just create like a large wall through here and then just custom place core wood logs so they would just connect to each other, and then I would remove the wall after. But again, yeah, definitely took a while, but I think the technique definitely pays off because this build wouldn't be the same without these kind of swooping bridges crisscrossing throughout the platforms. I was actually decently surprised to see how well these bridges held up too. So there are some sneaky supports on this one. You'll see I have some supports here and I think here, but as you can see, you get a decent amount of distance from the stability from these core woods. So it's kind of fun to see how far I could push this. Again, no mods utilized here. This is just all normal stability mechanics, but yeah, definitely a technique I'll utilize in other builds too. But yeah, so as we work through these different platforms, you see I tried to vary how these different spaces were utilized. So some of these spaces are more work areas where maybe some more skins are being worked on. Some of them are more house-like. So this is where you would sleep. A nice cozy fire. Just some table, some meats. I think this larger one here was intended more to be a more communal space. So maybe this is where people would come together to discuss things. Maybe like the village leader, something like that. I think this is more of a larger, maybe a little bit fancier home. And this is the only one that has the actual full bed. But yeah, definitely try to vary some designs and how the spaces are utilized just to make it a little bit more interesting and not too repetitive. But again, every platform is varied in terms of the height. And then I did have this kind of cool multi-layer design where I did this spiral staircase. Well, kind of a staircase. It's really just core woods rotated. You can't necessarily walk up it, but you can still hop up it, which honestly, it's fine. It works. It gets you up and down the platform. But yeah, so just different house designs that just kind of lead to different platforms. Maybe this is kind of an outlook platform that maybe some other village guards would be standing on. So if we work down to this hut, this is just more of a storage hut, and then this feeds down into another house. So feels nice and cozy. I like how we've decorated it. It feels really consistent with kind of our like primitive theme. So I really like how that worked out. I think it's nicely designed, and again, like how it's all varied in terms of height. It just feels really dynamic. I think this is just maybe more storage, maybe some bows. Just an outlook over here on the water. This nice swooping bridge over here, which leads into maybe more of like a kitchen area where they're cooking some things. Oh, looks like that fire just went out. And I think, yeah, more storage around here. But I love how this is all like just like interconnected and just has so many different layers to it. Got another house over here. Very similar style. And this loops up over to this other outlook on the other side. And then we're back here at this large swooping bridge that kind of cuts all the way across the build. So, but yeah, again, just love the layering about how this all kind of interconnects and just crisscrosses with the bridges. I just think that makes it look super cool. I think we have one more house down here as well. Very similar style and feels very, very primitive. But there you guys have it, the Endor-inspired tree village. Too bad they don't have Ewoks in this game, but I guess the Grey Dwarves will just have to take over this area. Again, this was a really special build for me. I've been wanting to do something like this for a while, and I just couldn't be happier with the result. Such a strong theme to this build, and it really makes it feel like you're in a fantasy world other than Valheim, which is cool. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this build, perhaps took some inspiration from it. If you did, please make sure you like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one. Thanks.